Good morning, and thanks for you to be there, and thanks to our great panelists to be with us. Okay, I'm be pleased to introduce Sandy Cutter. You know her, I'm sure, because let's say she's an author. She's an evangelist, social evangelist, and VP at IBM, and she has a nice blog. Okay, and you know also Polly. Okay. And Polly is Sumner is from Salesforce. She has we have an evangelist there, and here we have the Chief Adoption Officer, which is great. And now I'm very pleased to have another friend with me, which is Nicolas. Nicolas is head and director of the social Prospective at Danone, and he's the head of the Danone 2.0 program. And what we'd like to share with you this morning is something quite simple, okay? Is to talk about social enterprise and talking about the shift of the model of the enterprise. We are moving, as we know, toward, let's say, change and drastic change in the model of value creation, of innovation, change management. Everything is changing due to this pace of technology, change of adoption, and where any people are beginning to be a kind of entrepreneur, what I call a knowledge entrepreneur, an information entrepreneur, okay? And to be as well in charge, let's say, to fix easily problems. In order to be precise in our short time, we have, let's say, 35 minutes to go, I will first ask Mrs. Panist to explain to us why we are moving, let's say, in a paradigm shift of the model of the enterprise. Sandy.
Thank you, Richard. There's a couple things that I think are the reasons that we're moving to enterprise social today. And the first is, show me the money. It's all about return on investment. If you look at the latest report that was done by McKinsey, McKinsey found that by adding social into your business processes improves your business results. So let me just give you some of the numbers that I find very compelling. If you add social into customer service, let's say that you use social analytics to help you better meet the needs of your clients when they call in or when you call them, on average, the study showed that there was an 18% increase in customer satisfaction. If you add social into your innovation process, so ideation, crowdsourcing, a 20% faster time to market for the products, 20%, and 20% more likely product to succeed in the marketplace. Makes sense because you crowdsourced it, but again, 20% improvement. If you look at adding social into the way that you do your talent management and talent retention, you have a 15% decrease in cost because you're retaining more of your employees. You're recruiting better talent. And I'll just do one more. If you add social to sales for opportunity identification and to marketing for demand generation, on average, a 10% increase in your revenue. So the first why, to me, is show me the money. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about using social in a business sense. The second one, main reason I see as companies using social is for the upcoming war of talent. People make our businesses. Social is about people. And we're now seeing decisions made on where a person goes to work based on how social the enterprise uses internally. In fact, a couple days ago, I was in Canada. I was there for a celebration as a major bank in Canada opened Facebook to all of its employees. This study showed from Harvard Business Review that if you look at the top 5 reasons that people choose to go to work for a company, obviously there's salary. I think that's global. There's the type of job, again, global. And then there is, does the company enable me to use these collaborative tools that I'm used to using? Do they enable me to use those at work? A decision criteria for selection of a company of talent. So, Richard, I think those are the major 2 whys why an enterprise should go to social business.
Thanks a lot, Sandy. And let's say, as we're entering this talent economy and creation economy you are talking about, where the time where we don't know what the future is going to be, and in this time of future catastrophe, maybe, when we need to organize the resilience of an organization in order to invent, but also to resist, what is the why for you, Polly?
Well, I think there's a lot of whys. I mean, obviously, talent is really important. I mean, in the next 10 years, we'll be hiring people who've never sent an email. You know, these are the tools, these are the way they communicate, and people want to work in new and different ways, and I think that talent is certainly one of them. I'd like to explore another little aspect of social, and that is, you know, sort of our social responsibility. I think that corporate philanthropy and the integration of social responsibility into corporate cultures is a big reason why people join companies. Certainly that's a major reason why people join the company that I work for. Another one is, of course, it connects you with your customers. Ideation we talked about. I think the big challenge for all of us, though, is what do we do about social leadership? I mean, for those of you that are managers in your business today, you know, I get a lot of packaged information to me. When I was a CEO, people packaged the data before they delivered it to me. So how do I get real transparency about what the customer really thinks, what my employees think, how they feel about the place that they work? And one of the big things about social and social networks is transparency and kind of the rise of the individual contributor. And I think those are big talent and big ideation opportunities as well as innovation opportunities for companies. If you don't have a social strategy, I'm not really sure what your business is going to be.
Thank you, Polly. And certainly you outlined one point, and Nicolas, okay, we were talking about engagement, we were talking about performance, we were talking about the capabilities, let's say, for any organization to manage well the community of destiny of a group, okay? In your role, okay, what are the why? Why Danone Hunter, let's say, the model of the social organization?
Thanks, Richard. First of all, I guess that social organization is not something new. We talk a lot about the increasement of the performance of the company, the fact that companies like to improve the efficiency of the organization, and also the fact that companies want to leverage innovation. And these three domains are the art of the social organization. But the thing that is new is that now social technology helps us, in fact, to connect people inside and outside. And if you want to share, to collaborate, it's important for a company to be able to connect people. And especially when you are in a global company such as IBM, Danone, or now many different companies are much more global or at least international. And it's important for us to be able to connect the people, to be able to connect the people who want to share practices, to share expertise. And social technology helps us to do that. Social technology is also something new in terms of collaboration and in terms of, you talk about engagement. So what is important for a company is to be able to empower people. And this is key in social enterprise, and it's the most important thing that is new for us since maybe 5 years. It's a way that now we are able to empower people. That means people are able to share their knowledge, to be able to share what they deliver day to day, and this helps, in fact, to increase the efficiency of the organization and the performance of the company.
Yeah, I think and looking at, let's say, in my capacity being at the head of the Enterprise 2.0 Institute at Grenoble Management School, and we are working quite closely, let's say, with all of you folks. And also, as any professor, I'm a consultant in a firm named Next Modernity, in which we are working with many companies. It's clear that this is a challenge, okay? How to move. The question is why people are beginning to understand that, okay? It's necessary today to change the model of management, to change the model of the conversation with the market, the conversation within the organization. Now it's a how. Because people are hesitating, okay? You talk about management, okay? How we're going to move from control command to leadership, servant leadership, for instance. How we're going to move, let's say, toward, let's say, transparency. Okay. Polly, you have an idea in that? The how.
Yeah, well, I think maybe I'd answer on behalf of the customers that I deal with every day. We see customers doing sort of three things, and they can kind of come in any order. The first one is in an attempt to delight their customers, they're building customer social profiles and using the information and the knowledge that's out there about in social networks, et cetera, to build really a social profile of the customers or their partners, the constituents that they serve. The second one is to really build social networks inside their companies. I know Nicolas talked about that, and certainly Sandy, we've talked about how you do that, and I think here at the conference you've seen a lot of tools to do that. Making your employees social just derives all kinds of benefits for the company, as well as for your employees themselves. And then third is kind of an area that's just emerging, and that is, how do I make my products social? And that's a bit of a challenge. I mean, maybe we can think about products that could, like a car, that could become your friend like Toyota's doing or something like that, or a Coke machine with freestyle Cokes that actually recognizes the specific drink mix that you like and maybe can issue you a coupon. But what if you're an insurance company? How do you make your insurance policy social? How do you make your laundry social if you're a company like CWS Boco? So I think that there's a big challenge out there, and the ideas are going to come from the inside, and they're going to come from listening and interacting with your customers. But I would argue there's probably not a product that we make in our world today that doesn't have some aspects, if you change the thinking around and you say, how does that product become part of a social network, that you couldn't figure out what that might be.
Interesting. Your point of view.
Well, this is an interesting question because I was counting up. I've been to now 66 countries around the world. And the question, Richard, that you asked is the #1 question that I get wherever I go. And that is, how do you become a social business? So there's a couple things that we work with our clients on in order to become a social business. The first one is we look at culture. And you may be saying, we're at LeWeb, we're talking about technology. What does culture matter? But culture makes all the difference in the world. My favorite saying that I have up in my office is, culture eats strategy for lunch. No matter how great your social strategy is, if your culture isn't accepting of the transparency and the engagement, you will fail. You will fail. #1 failure factor across the world. So the first thing that we do when we talk to clients about how to become a social business is we do an evaluation of their culture. Are they ready? What can they do to get ready? Because I agree with Polly, if you're not going to be social, you're not going to be in business very long. Secondly, we look at how you as a company develop a trust plan. So how do you get people to trust you, your product, your people? And some of that involves getting your employees engaged because it's a P2P business now, people to people. A lot of that, though, involves understanding who your influencers are, your tippers. So, you know, it's really interesting. If you look at the Arab Spring crisis and you look at all the people who contributed to what happened in Egypt, do you know the #1 person who talked about that crisis, who had the most followers, was Justin Bieber? You guys know Justin Bieber? I have posters of him in my daughter's room everywhere. He had the most Twitter followers. But guess what? Just by having the most Twitter followers, he wasn't the most influential person. There were 2 other people who had less than 5,000 followers who really impacted that business. And they were what I would call, Richard, the tippers, those influencers, those opinion leaders who made a difference. And as a company, you want to understand who those people are, both as your employees as well as your customers. And an interesting fact, I was a math major, and statistically, between 5 and 15% of your clients influence everybody else. And 5 to 15% of your employees influence everybody else. So if you know who those people are and you form a relationship with them, you can be extremely successful. The next thing, may I continue? Okay. The next thing that we do help companies look at is we help them look at their engagement strategy. And the hottest engagement piece today that we look at is mobile technology. And in fact, if you don't have a solo-mo strategy, social, local, mobile strategy in your engagement, we don't believe you'll be there very long. 68% of us leverage a social network through some sort of mobile device. So you've got to look at engagement. Mobile's hot. Gamification. I think, this year it was solo-mo. I think next year at LeWeb, you guys can all come and find me, because I am coming back. I think gamification will be the hot trend. 80% higher recall using gaming. 35 is the average age of a gamer. 35 is not your kids. And today, all of the Fortune 50 companies are using gaming to engage in a social way, either onboarding, getting new clients, educating, doing something like that. And I think the final areas that are the how, which is the listening and the analytics. I love to say that analytics is the new black. Walking around LeWeb, I think everybody here gets that because everybody's wearing black. I saw that as one of the tweets yesterday. But understanding what people are saying about you, listening in the market, doing predictive analysis, sentiment. And I'll give you one interesting story about an energy drink based here in Europe. As we looked at analytics around an energy drink, in person, when they do their advertising, they look at athletes as the #1 consumer. But online, with social analytics, do you know who the #1 influencer is of energy drinks? It's not athletes, it's not moms, it's not kids, it's gamers who want to stay up all night long, and they drink energy drinks to stay up all night long and game. We would never have known that without social analytics. Looking at predictive capability as well. So thank you, Richard.
Polly, before to give the hand to Nicolas, let's say you are the Chief Adoption Officer, okay? Then the how is certainly your question, okay? What you would like to add and what you would like to, let's say, to tell us regarding the how. As soon, let's say, we know that the technology are important, but the technology is just a ball, enabling people to play a game, okay, which is a social game. As soon we're moving from this industrial age to the social age by some extent. Now, from your standpoint and experience, what are the main points for the how we're going to move and to be a social enterprise?
Well, yeah, you're right. The technology's there. I think the challenge is not unlike any kind of leadership. You got to do it first. I mean, if you're transparent, if you're open, if you don't go to the old tools that you used to use, but you basically go to, in our company, I posted it as open Chatter first. Chatter happens to be our social communication, social networking tool. And, I think it's up to us to make that be the example. And so while I talked before about, customer profiles and employee social networks and products, I think the how really comes down to, are you doing it? And if you're doing it and setting the example, others will follow. And you have a lot of experience in this too, I'm sure, Nicolas.
Nicolas, let's say the how, okay, you have experienced it, okay, and what was it? Tell us a little bit of your past.
Okay, thanks. First of all, I have a chance to work in a great company in which networking and social dimension is something that is crucial and something that is very important, a part of the DNA of the company. And in fact, we launched the social enterprise in 2003, before the Facebook revolution, before every revolution in terms of technology and social technology. Why? Because we launched the social enterprise with technology 0.5. What I mean by 0.5 is human. So we decided to work before on the attitude of people to change the way they perceive collaboration and to in fact enhance the capacity of the company to share knowledge, to share good practices in order to accelerate the time to market or to accelerate the revolution in terms of innovation. So we moved from a company, a networked company with people in 2008 with some technology. So we helped the revolution of technology. And what I want just to add to the two last testimonies is that I believe that the fact that the company use technology, help us, in fact, to enhance the collaboration and the social dimension. But we are faced with many different challenges as a company. The first one is it's easy to say we need to ask people to share knowledge or to empower them or to engage them. But in fact, people don't want to share. It's one of the crucial dimensions that we have to work on. So we need to support community management, to support and to help them in order to be able to collaborate and to share the knowledge and expertise. The second point is that in this room, most of you have a computer in your day-to-day work. It's not the case in many different companies. For example, when I work in Danone, when I look at Danone, Danone is 100,000 people working in the company. 40,000 people have a computer. That means that 60,000 people don't have a computer. So it's not easy to say you are part of the social enterprise. So that's why we need to adopt some new technology, and mobile device and mobile technology are, I guess, the future and the next dimension that would be able to adapt and to spread this social enterprise. And the second thing is that it's easy. Not easy, but when you are able and when you engage people internally to share knowledge, to share expertise is one thing. When you ask them now to talk to their company outside, not outside the company, so that means in the ecosystem or in the environment, not necessarily talking about product. We don't talk only about product. We talk about it, but this is not the only way to talk about the company. We talk about, you said that one of the key dimensions is also attracting talent, attracting people. So we engage people to talk about the company for the recruitment and for the employer branding. And it's also key. So that means we need to encourage them to talk about the company. We need to support them. And it's a part of the change management that is crucial for the adoption of the social enterprise.
Yeah, it means that is this movement to make change a lifestyle by some extent, okay? And to be sure that you are in the position, let's say, to have everybody being involved, which is certainly the point. And based on mobile is certainly critical, the tablets is certainly important, and to be sure that the conversation is going on within the company. And I would like just to ask you to, today many companies are engaged, and the web demonstrates that in social media, in marketing, conversation with customers. In the meantime, I know a lot of companies doing that, and not moving toward a social organization per se. It means that there is a kind of paradox, and they are not walking the talk, okay? Which is a risk. And how could we help to fix the problems? Because people don't understand that if you want to have any employees being an ambassador of your brand, you need to have, let's say, a social organization per se. I mean, how and why we could move in that direction? I would like to have your point of view too.
I would say, you know, if you look at why companies don't move in that direction, Richard, a lot of it is because they feel that it's going to be too risky. I was flying to Canada from New York, and I got stuck on the runway in New York. And I happened to be on the plane with 7 CEOs. So we got stuck there for 4 hours. At the second hour, one of the CEOs turned to me and he said, "So what do you do?" So I started talking to him about social business. And about halfway through, he stopped me and he said, "Sandy, this is really interesting, but my board and I opted out of social." And I thought that was really funny. How could you opt out of social? So when I started talking to him about why he opted out because he and his board were afraid of the risk of becoming a social organization, of having their employees collaborate internally and maybe talk about the board or the company in the wrong way, or sharing some information externally about a product, or, you know, they were scared. That was the problem. And what they didn't realize is that by not engaging in the conversation, the risk was actually higher than abstaining from the conversation. So I think a lot of this is about understanding the risk, doing risk mitigation, and also helping companies with a reputation management plan.
I would agree with that. I think it's also about taking risk yourself. many people and get to the positions of power because they have knowledge that somebody else doesn't. So sharing that knowledge is not a very interesting thing for them to do, shall we say. I think the second one is that it's all about, you know, when I went to graduate school and the rest of it, we learned principles of management around organization and things like that. And, you know, social networks and social business break down the traditional means of organization. So we have to question ourselves in the morning and say, gee, how am I going to actually manage that? And my job says manager. And so, you know, what is that going to do to me? So I think there's a bit of this human risk that I would argue is probably stronger than the actual proven facts of the business risk, which doesn't seem to have manifested itself as much. And I think the third thing is that a lot of us in our core, because of our upbringing, may not be social ourselves. And so it does take a bit of kind of getting outside your own skin, so to speak, and rethinking the way you communicate with others. And, you know, engaging in a conversation like you do at a dinner table is not necessarily the conversational tone that you might have with your employees at work, or let's say that you're trying to resolve a problem. I mean, in some companies that you think about, you know, it's he who speaks with the louder voice, or we all look to this authoritarian figure called the CEO to make the really tough calls, or our boss or something. And in a social world, that's not it. You make the decision. And that's not a comfortable place for a lot of people, just from a human capital perspective.
Yeah, and Nicolas, let's say, it's clear that, let's say, I'm referring, you know, for instance, to Clay Shirky and the power of organizing without organization, or to Rework, or to the book from VNet regarding employees first, customer second. That's interesting as well, okay, in the move toward, let's say, this social organization. Maybe, let's say, Nicolas, you could help us to understand better this move toward, let's say, the social enterprise, and maybe to tell us if you consider that, let's say, the social network for a given organization is an ERP for the 21st century. And do ERP as the last avatar of the industrial age? Okay? Could you illustrate that with your personal experience?
Okay, this is just my personal experience and personal point of view. So I guess that the ERP will still be a part of the business for the few next years. This is not because I believe in the ERP, but I guess that it's a part of the business, and more companies are still developing ERP or using ERP. The fact is that social networks helps to connect the people inside the company, and is more and more also be involved in the business. Because when you look at our experience, social network is of course a way to connect people. It's a lever for us to engage a conversation between the people inside the company. But it's also a way to replicate innovation. It's also a way to reduce time to market. It's also a way to co-create within the company for the moment, and I guess with our consumer and with our different partners, not only the consumer, but the NGO, universities, and maybe the suppliers. And so the social network is gaining more and more market share in terms of business. And this is why you said that it's important, and now the ROI of social networks is more and more sure or established in the company. But I'm sure that in terms of performance and in terms of efficiency, in terms of in the organization, social network helps, in fact, to simplify. And that's why also it's key, because simplification, I guess, in a big company is something that is key today for the innovation and for the acceleration of the business. And so social network maybe it's a little bit in advance in terms of simplification regards to the ERP.
Thank you. What I would like to ask you folks is in 1 minute to provide, let's say, the audience with one nugget to take back home on our discussion. Since, let's say, in the organization today, many organizations are focusing on process. And process is not always good in order to manage complexity, as you know. How we're going to be able to manage, let's say, to put conversation within process. How we're going to help people to fix easily the numerous unexpected problems which are arising these days, okay? Which is a challenge of the social organization. And I would like to say all of you, let's say, will tell us what we have to keep in mind. What is the lessons to take back home? Sandy, you start?
Okay, so my biggest lesson to take back home is not to wait. If you compare this to the internet era, where a lot of companies said, you know, this is only for kids, this is for university students, we're not going to use it for business. And then they got fooled that they weren't an early adopter, but they were able to catch up because they had great IT departments and a lot of money. Social is in the same stage that the internet was in. Some companies are saying, you know, this is only for kids, this is for university students, not going to take a risk on it. But if you're not a first mover in social, you will be left behind and you'll be losing a first mover advantage. Because social is not about technology. Social is about what Richard said. It's about applying the conversation into a process, and it's about people. And if you think about forming any kind of relationship, that's not about money, it's not about IT, it's about time to form that relationship. So if you're a company sitting in the room and you haven't started your social business journey, then my first piece of advice is to get going fast, experiment, you know, try out the social business platforms that exist out there today and get going. Do not be left behind.
Polly.
I definitely would agree, yeah, get going. And I think that it's get going fast. And if you're not ready for, we're just at the beginning of this. I've never seen so much innovation in our customers in Silicon Valley and out in the world today. We've just tipped, we mentioned mobile a couple of times. We've just got on the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole new set of capabilities that we're just beginning to see around the combination of presence and preference and geolocation and all kinds of things. So I think get going, experiment often, and learn to be social yourself. It's quite a challenge.
I like what Sandy said about the social enterprise, and social enterprise is not only technology. That means that if you want to develop a social company, you need to engage the people, you need to invest a lot in terms of change management. And in the same way, social enterprise is also technology. That means that I'm a part of the HR department in my company, and one of the key successes in the deployment of of the social network inside Danone is also the great work in between the IT and IS department with the other part, and especially with the HR department. So being a social company is also being a social team. That means collaborate with all the different departments, all the different types of department in the company.
Thank you, and I would like certainly to thank you all. My nugget is go and do it. Don't wait. This is clear. Because I know a lot of companies that are hesitating. They are not going to be in the next 10 years. Yves Cazot, the executive VP of Bouygues Telecom, wrote a book, and he told the enterprise of the 21st century will be a social enterprise or not going to exist anymore. Keep that in mind. Thank you to be there with us, and thank you to you.